Hi, and welcome to Dime's Block of the Month. This is block number 7, and it's the DSDS, which to me means diamond in a square, diamond in a square. I'm PJ Wong, and I'm going to guide you through this block. So you're looking at a picture of the block right now, and this is the actual block that's been stitched out. And then here is just a 3-block layout. I think this would be very fun for like a table runner or maybe a sofa scarf, something like that. Okay, so let's get started. We're gonna use my block piecer to set up the block itself and then switch over to my quilt embellisher to add the accents, the little jingle bells in the corner, the stippling, and the lettering. In my block piecer, we're going to use some existing artwork and modify that. So this is what it's going to look like once you get done, but right now I'm going to show you exactly how to get there. Okay, so in my block piecer, I'm just going to delete this for the time being. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here to our quilt block library. And in the diamond in a square category, right here, we've got diamonds. So I'm going to choose this, and it's automatically going to come up as an 8-inch block. And you can see that right here going to the transform menu. The size of this block when I get done is going to be 7 inches, but I'm going to leave it at 8 for right now, and I'll show you why. It's because it makes the increments easier to figure out. So this is already highlighted, which is great, and I'm simply just going to go up here and I'm going to say copy and paste. So currently we have the one diamond in a square, so what I'm going to do now is set up for the second diamond in a square. So I've got the second set that's already highlighted, and I'm just going to drag it down till the horizontal line here intersects with this section, which is basically halfway in. And in essence, I'm just dragging this whole thing down to, this is going to end up being a 4-inch square. So there we now have, so here's the diamond in that square and here's the diamond in this square. So now the only problem with this is that this particular diamond right here, if I hide all the rest of these colors, you'll be able to see this is still an entire diamond all by itself. If we were to try to build this right now, we couldn't because we've got overlapping artwork. So we just need to fix this one little bit. So this is a perfect place to use our triangle function, and I'm just gonna, because we already know this is the size of the triangle that we need, so I'm just gonna start at the top left corner and drag this down, and my snap is in fact on. If you right click, you can see here snap to grid, which is exactly what I want. So I now have my diamond in place. I can delete this original diamond because basically what I'm going to do is fill in these blank spots. So with my first triangle selected, I'm simply just going to copy and paste and then rotate, and drag that into position. And then I could hold down my control key and I could select both of those pieces and I could do copy and paste again and then rotate around for those. You could do them separately as well. But now I've got all of my artwork set up and nothing is overlapping, which is exactly what we're looking for. So, all right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go in and I'm going to do some fabric previews. And I'm going to start with my center block. So I'm just going to select this, and don't forget you can select from your sequence view over here as well. I'm going to go into my fabrics and I'm going to click my little dots, and I'm going to go into my library and I'm going to go into my 2008 beach sewing collection. And for the center block, I want my little scissor background, my white scissors. It's just a white on white print. And if I click off of that, you can see that a little better. And if I take off my grid, it's even easier to see. So there's my scissor on scissor. And then my next set, and you can select all of these at one time as well. So if you just click, you can hold down your control key and then click into the subsequent blocks. You can also just quick click into the area over in the sequence bar. These are all set up together. So either of those selection methods will work. And then once again into my fabrics, and beach sewing. And this one is going to be my green and gray dots, which are here. And again, what's so fun about being able to preview your fabrics is that I could go into here, oops, and I could choose anything that I want. Say I want that one to be the black scissors. I could go in there and look at that and say, maybe not the best selection. So it's much quicker to do this on your computer, I think, than it is to actually stitch up an entire block. It saves a lot of time and money. So, all right, I'm going to go back to my green and gray dots and I'm going to say okay to that. So there's that section. And then my next section is the next set of triangles here, my diamond triangles. And once again, to my fabrics and to my collection, beach sewing. And this one is going to be, actually, this is a perfect place to play. So here's the gray scissors. What is that one going to look like? That one's not bad. There's some nice contrast in here between size and colors. I'm going to go with what I've got in my original, which is the pink check. This is kind of a fun version of a holiday theme. Instead of red and green, I'm kind of doing pink and greens. So, and then for my corners, my final square corners, I'm going to come in here, and this one is actually, this is where my green for my holiday comes in, and I'm using the green scissors on this one. But you could try the green check as well. I think the green check, it's a little, for me, this is a little too busy with the check here. But this is the great thing about this. I could try a different set of dots. If you weren't going for a holiday theme, that might be kind of fun because it coordinates with the green and gray dots in here. I'm going to stick with the green scissors. It gives it kind of a funky holiday feel. Okay, so our artwork is all set up. We've got our fabric all previewed, and so we're ready to build our block. So I'm just going to select everything, and I'm just doing a left press and drag from the top left to the bottom right. You could also do a Control A, which on your Control A on your keyboard, which is a select all. So once I've got everything selected, I'm just going to go up here to my workflow tool. And I'm going to tell this that I want this to have 3/8 inch seam allowance. So that's just, I just like to do it that way. You can leave it at 1/4, that's the default. And then I'm just going to hit my auto build. And it's going to set everything up. You can start your numbers if you'd like, so that everything is exactly in the correct order. So here you've got your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10, 11, 12, and 13. Okay, so now I can preview this. Oh, it's telling me select a larger hoop. I need to go in here and select, actually it doesn't really matter what, well, if you would want to select the hoop that you're actually going to be used, so that the one you will actually be using, so that you know that it will fit in there. So if I go in here to my brother and baby lock, I should be able to select a 200 by 300. That's still not going to be big enough, and I can explain to you why when we get to the next one. It's because of the angles out here in the corner, and I'll show you how to fix that if you are in fact going to be oh, actually I take that back. Let me close this. I know why that's too big. We never resized this to 7 inches. All right, this is all selected. I'm going back into here and I'm selecting 7, and my maintain aspect ratio is on. There we go. All right, sorry about that. And back to the workflow, and this should all be set up. I need to change this again. 375 auto build. Nothing of that should change, except for the sizes will all be redone. And then you can see how it's fitting in this now as well. And then the preview. There we go. All right, so perfect. That's exactly what we want. So all we need to do now is save this design. So I'm just going to choose save. And I am going in here, and as a default, generally speaking, this is going to take you to your C dime. Oh, wait a minute. C dime designs. And then I have my folder that I've built here, 2018 block of the month. So this is my 7 block. So I'm calling this 07 DSDS. And 0.375, that's my seam allowance. That's just so that I can keep track of what seam allowance I used. And I'm going to say save, and it's going to build all that for me. And you're also going to get, this should pop up on your screen. This will show you, here is your picture of your design. Here's your artwork. And then you'll get a preview page that's got the image of your block, and you can see all of your numbers here. And then once again, this is your stitching file for your piecing. And then this, to me, is one of the most important parts of this. These are the step-by-step directions, or step-by-step steps for each of your stitching. So this is for all of your placements, and then here's your right side up tacking stitch, and then it goes into your seam stitching and your tack stitching. So seam stitching, tack stitching. Okay, so that's all right there for you. All right, so that's been saved. I can just close this now. And if you want to do your cut file, you can then simply come up here to your cut, and then it's going to give you everything once again. Remember that you want to change your seam allowance to the same thing that you did on your block. And then also here, I'm going to move this back to paper letter. Or if you can print legal, you could do paper legal too. Where did that just go? Paper legal. There you go. So this is basically going to give you the patterns for each of your parts. Okay. And then once again, you can save that out. And I'm going to save that into the same place here underneath this folder. And I'm just going to call this cut DSDS and save that. And once again, you will get a folder underneath your cutting file. And if I bring this back over here, you can see. So here's the folder that I just created. Within this folder, these are the pattern pieces for each of your parts, your patches. And then this is the preview, once again, your block. And then this section is going to tell you for each section the size fabric that you need. And this is really only for one block, so you might have to do a little math if you're doing multiple blocks. Okay? All right. So we're done with everything in there. I can just simply close this, and we can switch on over to my Quilt Embellisher, and we're going to set up our embellishments. Okay, I've switched over to my Quilt Embellisher. Don't forget to download your free designs. I'm just going to close the My Inspiration Today page, and I'm going to go over here to my designs, and here are my 2018 block of the month. I'm going to just expand that and then go down here to my 07 DSDS. So this is the artwork that we're going to need. So I'm just going to left press and drag this over into our work area, and here is the background that we're going to use to set up all the rest of our designs. So for this, for the corners, and I'm going to pull up the picture here again really quick. So here you can see the corners. I've got these fun little jingle bells. That's one of the designs that's already built into the system. So that will be very, very easy. Okay, so we're going to go up here to our embellishments button. I'm just going to click that. And again, you've got tons of designs in here. This one happens, my little jingle bells happen to be, I do believe, in the holiday under bells. And here they are right here. So I'm just going to select that and say OK. So when these come in, if I drag them up here to the corner, you can see that they're actually a little bit too big. I'm just going to move them up there into position, and then using one of the diagonal handles with where I get my diagonal double arrow, I'm just going to drag that down until it fits into that section a little bit better. I don't want it to actually run into any of my seams. I'm going to say about like that. And if you want to turn your grid on so that you can get this placed exactly, not a bad idea. I can shrink it up from this side too. So I'm going to say that that's pretty good. If I want it to actually snap into the corner, as long as I have my snap to grid on, this should, if I zoom in on this a little bit, yeah. So if I basically just pull this up, it should snap into place right there at the corner. It's touching a little bit right here, so I really actually just want it up a little bit from there. And honestly, I'm just kind of eyeballing this into place. So it's basically equidistant between here and the edge of the block. Okay, so I'm going to switch over here to my sequence view, and if I turn off, just by clicking on my eyeball, that will turn off all of the artwork. And if I zoom in on this, and this is how all of the embellishments come in, there's always a border around them, which is the lighter of the colors. I actually don't want that border, I just want the design. So I've just selected it, and I'm using the delete key on my keyboard. So now all I have, and if I turn on my realistic view, you can see this is just all stitching now. And I think I'm going to change that to a color that's a little easier to see. So this is on a green background, and I can turn all of these components back on just by clicking my little eyeballs. If I select that group, I can right click on my color and I can change the color of that to make it a little bit brighter. I'm going to change up here to my exquisite threads and choose this bright pink, and I'm going to say neon pink. Okay, that's what I want. And then just right click to change that color. So now that's a little bit easier to see. So I'm just going to double click on my magnifier to zoom everything to fit into my screen. Now I'm just going to copy this and rotate it around to fill all of my corners. So copy paste, rotate, rotate, and then just drag this into position. And once again, I'm just eyeballing this. Once two of them are there, you can select both by holding down your control key. You can copy and paste, and here you could actually just mirror these over and then position them into place here. If you want to make sure that all of that is perfectly centered, if you select all of those, you can, once they're all selected, you can simply right click and say center origin, and it will bounce everything exactly to the center, so you'll know they're exactly aligned to the center. Okay, so those are outside embellishments, and in reality we're going to end up reordering this. We're going to stitch from the inside to the outside, and so let's start with our inside next. So here, and once again, if I bring up my picture, I just typed in a hoe, and I just think this is fun. Ho ho ho. So here I'm just going to go into my text tool, and I need to click someplace in my design field. So there's my letter, and over here on the text, in the text properties, I'm just going to type in hoe with an exclamation, and then I'm going to go through here and find the font that I'd like. And again, if you just click, single left click where the fonts are showing here, it will bring you up the catalog. So it just makes it, I think it makes it easier to browse. So let's look and see here. So let's Gesture Pro, let's see what that one looks like. That one's not too bad. I can once again center that. And also if I change that one to a darker color, I keep left clicking and I want to right click. So there's that hoe, and don't forget that you can actually just play with this. So say you want this to be a more oblong font, or you want it a little bit skinnier. I'm just dragging in here, and I'm not sure this is actually the font that I use, but I very well could have. Okay, So if that's not the font that you want, you can choose whichever other font you'd like. This curly is always a fun one. That's pretty fun. Once again, you can center the origin. This one might be a little bit too long this way because this is dangling down. So that, for this particular scenario, that might not be the best font to use, but you get the idea. You can choose whichever font you'd like. And sometimes you do have to just play with it and see what's going to come up the best. So I'm going to go back. I think Gesture Pro really was the one that I used, and I think I did just modify that a little bit. So I made it a little bit wider and I think a little bit taller. And then centered the origin. So there we go. So there's our hoe. And if we want to make that a color that's closer to this, we could try that color. That might be a little bit closer to the scissor color. Okay, so now we've got, so there's 3 different design elements in here. And back to the picture once again. You know what, I think it's easiest to see on this one. So our jingle bells, there's our hoe. Oh, that wasn't the font that I used. All right. And then the triangles here and here, kind of in the middle ring as it were, that's just all stippled. So, all right, back to my quilt embellisher. So, we can actually, if it makes it easier for you to see what's going on, we can actually turn off some of these and we can turn off this middle piece. So this is where we want all of our stippling to be. Okay, so I just did a drag select to select all of that, and if I just come up here and choose my stippling, it will automatically take that artwork and turn it into stippling. Now, you can see here that basically what that's done, it's taken each individual piece and turned each individual piece into stippling. In reality, that's not what I want. I want it to stipple that whole section as one complete section with the hole cut out of the middle. So I'm just going to back up, and what I'm going to do here while this is all still selected, I'm just going to right click and say combine, and now this should all be one piece of artwork. So if I click on that, everything selects. And if I expand this, you can see now there's only one piece of artwork selected. So now if I click on my stippling, you can see that it's going to cross all of those boundaries and just create that one solid piece of stippling, which is exactly what I'm wanting. All right, so I'm going to go in here and I'm going to adjust my stitch length. I can leave my stitch length at 3.5. I usually like my stippling to be a little less dense, so we can try 10 millimeters. That's probably not dense enough because it's a fairly small spot, so maybe 8. Whoops. So what were we on to begin with? So that was on 3. Maybe we should try 5. Maybe 6. Sometimes you have to, nope, see, 6 is too much. So I guess we're going to go with 5 because I really do want stippling in there, but I don't want it really, really dense. Okay, I can turn on my other items of embellishment here. So what I really want this to do is, let's see here, this is that's our stippling. So what I really want to happen is I really want my hoe to run first, and then my stippling, and then my embellishment. So I'm just dragging these into the order that I want. The items that are down here, this is just artwork. So it doesn't really matter where that is in the order because it's not going to stitch anyway. And you can see here, because I've got my artwork at the bottom, it's on the frontmost layer. It's kind of covering up my stitching. So in reality, I probably should put that at the start. So I'm just going to hold down Control and hold down Shift key with both of those selected, and I'll move this up to the front. And now you can see the designs are on the front of the artwork. It's just a visual. It won't affect your stitching at all. Okay, excuse me. So I am going to save this file now. So I'm going to do a save as, and I'm going to go back to the same place that I was before, which should be in your C dime designs, and then into my 2018 block, and here is my diamond in a square, and I'm going to pick up this name, and I'm just going to change the end of this to EMB. All right, so that's my embellishment file. So one thing that I did forget to do is I forgot to put in here my basting border to tack your back down. All right, so let's go ahead and put that in right now, and I can simply come in here to my rectangle, and I can just drag a rectangle that's the size of my artwork, and I can tell that convert to run. And I want that to be a color like no other color in my design, so I'm actually going to turn it this. I happen to know that this goldenrod color isn't in my other design either. So, and then I'm going to move this to stitch first. Okay, so I'm going to save that once again exactly as it was. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine both of those designs so that when I go to stitch this, I know that my piecing file and my embellishment file are all going to line up exactly the way that they should. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to open up. Here's my piecing file. So there's my piecing. And then I'm going to come back to my embellishment file, and I'm going to select everything from my basting border down, and I'm just going to copy all of this and say copy, and then go back to my other file and paste that right on the top. Okay, so basically what's going to happen here, so these are all your piecing parts, and then when it gets done with all your piecing parts, you have your basting border and then your embellishments. You can also adjust your basting border at this point to match up with the stitch file border here, which is just slightly larger than that 7 inches. And I'm just dragging it out there. Depending on how you set up your block, you could be stitching this twice. So in the step-by-step directions on the PDF, it walks you through exactly. When I set this up, I always stitch this particular one first, which will tack your blocks together. So, okay, so let's take one last look at the images, the pictures. So here's the actual block. So here's your lettering, and then your stippling, and then your jingle bells. And here's an image, and here's a 3-block layout. I hope you have fun with that one. We'll see you next month. Thanks.